The first game that we worked on this year was Veggie Tale. This retro-style RPG was meant to be an experiment. Several people from C-Melon joined me and we spent about a week working on it in order to test out our skills. We realized that we haven't really made a Pokemon-like game before, so we thought that it was the right time to change that. The result turned out to be...
It's awful. It's awful!
Though there was a handful of things to do and explore in the overworld, the combat section of the game was quite stale and could have been better for sure. But regardless, it was an experience to learn from. The next game that I made with C-Melon was LASERKEEP. Within a week, we made this unique looking shooter game with a twist. Your main weapon is the ability to shoot out lasers from your eyeballs. However, the enemies are invisible. Your goggles allow you to see them, but won't allow you to blast out with your eye lasers. We called them eyesers. The theme of this year's Brackeys Game Jam was "It is not real." And so the game takes place in a dream realm where remain the souls of the people who died from lack of sleep. In the same vein of some of our previous games, we decided to make a game in paper-like 2.5D style. As a result, we got 12th place in graphics and 14th place overall out of more than 1,600 entries in the jam, which was a huge step up from our last entries to this biannual game jam. Last year I made a lot of online multiplayer games and I couldn't go without making another one this year. So during one of the Friday night game jams, I decided to make an online multiplayer game in 3 hours. Yes, you heard me right, not 3 weeks, not 3 days, but 3 hours. There's nothing really special in it, it's basically an infinite shmup. But most importantly, you can play it with up to 4 people online. And it was also the first time I ever streamed my game making process on Twitch. So that was great. It's the start of April, but for me and my team that meant that it's time for another Ludum. We had to make a game within 72 hours with a pretty weird theme of delay the inevitable. We thought a lot about what we could do, but ultimately we ended up sticking with a funny game idea. And that idea's name was This is Sketchy. This game is literally and figuratively sketchy. Only by disobeying the narrator will you win the whole game and get all of the endings. But by doing so, you've basically delayed the inevitable.
What's wrong with you?
You'd always just make it harder for yourself and in the end you would always win. Just don't turn down the volume of the narrator.
This shit.
Oh man, if I had to choose a game as my greatest highlight of this year, it would probably have to be Knight Rider Arsenal. This was unlike anything I've ever done before. And the way it all started was very abrupt, but straightforward. So Swagshaw and I decided to forge people from 2 indie game dev teams together to take part in GameJolt's Together Jam. We basically had to make a game based off of several American classic TV shows that we had to choose from. We researched all of the shows and chose Knight Rider and Airwolf. But that's not it. We also had to make our game apply to the theme of the jam, which was power in numbers. And that's not the craziest part, because what we ended up doing was a game that consisted of 3 different game modes. The best part, however, was that we were one of the winners of the jam.
All right, coming in 3rd place for overall best game and the winner of $10,000.
Big dollars.
Big dollars. We have Knight Rider Arsenal! Created by Dynamite Stew and Team Melon from the United States.
The next game I had worked on was called Slay the Dice. In total, we had 48 hours to make a game for the GMTK Game Jam with the theme of Roll Off the Dice. We didn't really like the theme all that much and had quite a hard time coming up with a solid idea. In fact, we spent so much time on picking an idea that we only really agreed upon one during the next day of the jam. So we made a 2D platformer where you had to fight a dice which can roll on a certain number and attack the player. This summer I also developed a game called Money Seeker with Team Melon. We made it in less than 7 days for this year's Datorium Game Jam, where the theme was Pay to Win. I swear, there was something really wrong with the themes of game jams in 2022. Either way, we ended up making a game about a guy who would end up in a debt after spending all of his money in a casino. The goal is to recover the debt by working as a miner in a mineshaft. Very straightforward, but I think what really made this game sell and appeal to our audience was the overall style of the game. It is a great indicator of how our 2.5D style art evolved throughout the games we've made. It was time for another Ludum Diary, and this time I went solo. I had 48 hours to make a game in the theme of every 10 seconds. This theme can literally be fit into any genre, so I decided to use it as an advantage and make a sequel to my first ever Ludum Diary submission, which I made roughly 2 years ago, Dimension Loop. The concept is simple. You're stuck in a loop, or this time in a square. You can launch, bounce, and break the square box that you're trapped inside of, but it will always regenerate. But as you keep on breaking out of it, you will progress further, and the game will get more fun and challenging. At some point, every 10 seconds, the box will start changing colors, bringing changes to the gameplay in various ways. Besides programming and the graphics, I also had to compose some music. Luckily, I was able to pump out some simple tune in Chrome's Music Lab with zero experience in music theory. The game received positive ratings. It got 30th place overall and it got 14th place in innovation. Those were the highest results I ever attained in the massive Ludum Diary competition.